Most AI content absolutely fails on Google. It's because the content that comes out of it is straight up wrong, incorrect, bullshit. And that's because of two reasons. The first is because GPT's models are only trained up until January 2022. So anything super important that's happened since then, ChatGPT has no idea about. You know, stuff like Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, Barben Freakenheimer, and people wearing big red boots will not end up in your content. Maybe that's a good thing. The second reason is because of hallucinations. And no, that doesn't mean ChatGPT ate a bag of mushrooms. AI hallucinations are actually real errors where large language models produce outputs that are nonsensical or altogether inaccurate. Here's an example where ChatGPT thinks that the sole survivor of the Titanic was Charles Joughlin, when we all know that Rose and Billy Zane both made it out alive. In actuality, around 700 people survived. When ChatGPT was asked to cite sources as to where it got that there was only one survivor, it simply said, "Oops, I messed up." Okay, enough of this Titanic crap. How do you fix it so you can actually produce factually correct content that can make it to the top of Google? I thought you'd never ask. I designed a giga prompt that takes care of all of it for you. And the way it works is like this. Let's say you wanted to write an article on the history of the Titanic. I lied, I went back to Titanic. What it does is it tells ChatGPT to open up the top ranking articles on Google for history of Titanic, then extracts out all their facts, and then uses these facts to write your content. That's opposed to using the hallucinations or the incorrect facts that GPT might have been trained on. Therefore, the only way that incorrect facts will end up in your content is if everyone on page 1 of Google already has incorrect facts in their content. And if that's the case, then it doesn't matter anyways, because Google clearly doesn't care or even knows that these facts are wrong. Here's a website that's been using this technique for its content generation. As you can see, it works. 339% traffic increase in the last 12 months. Now we're about to get right to the prompt, but before that, I want to toss you an invite to my free SEO training masterclass. Just use the link in the pinned comment to learn what I'm doing to dominate on Google in 2024. Now back to that prompt. First things first, this requires web browsing capability, so I suggest using the Web Pilot plugin, which to me is the most reliable way to get ChatGPT to read content from a URL. And now for the prompt itself. Read the following URL. And for the example here, I put in a URL for the current 2024 popular stats of Egypt. Why Egypt? I don't know, because Egypt is cool. Anyways, moving on. Analyze and gather all of the facts you find in this document. When producing content that requires facts found in this document, you will strictly use the document's facts rather than facts learned in your training data. This word strictly is absolutely essential in getting this to work. Now here's what the output looks like. As you can see, it's using the Web Pilot plugin. Good. And then ChatGPT gives you a summary of the facts that it learned. Let's check if there's any incorrect facts. Current population as of February 12, 2024, 113,802,620. That checks out. Population growth. Wow, that's pretty awesome. It got the 1950 population data from the graph itself. That's not even found in the text. Population density? Yes, that checks out too. In fact, no pun intended, it all checks out. Now let's have it produce some content. ChatGPT, write me a 150-word introduction on what it would be like to migrate to Egypt. Reference facts from the previous article when necessary. And sure enough, here we go. Migrating to Egypt, a country with a rich tapestry of history and culture, presents a unique blend of heritage and modern vibrancy. And here's our first fact. Current population of over 113 million. Correct. Urbanization rate of 41.1%. Check. Cairo, the capital, with over 7 million people. Check. Median age of 24.2 years. Check. And so on and so on. ChatGPT crushed this. The amazing thing about that is that ChatGPT by default has no freaking idea about any of these facts because it was only trained on up to January 2022. Want proof? Here's another ChatGPT session with no previous fact training setup. ChatGPT, write me a 150-word introduction to what it would be like to migrate to Egypt. Reference as many facts about current population statistics as you can. And here's the output. Migrating to Egypt, a country with a rich tapestry of history and culture, offers a unique brand of blah, 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 blah. That sounds very familiar. As of the latest statistics, Egypt's population exceeds 100 million. Okay, so ChatGPT didn't really fail on this one, but over 100 million certainly isn't as accurate as 113 million. And here's the only other fact that it attempted. A significant portion of the population is under 30. Again, that's like saying Japan has a lot of Japanese people. While ChatGPT didn't really hallucinate in this example, you'd be hard-stressed to say that the content it produced was useful. Even though I told it to reference as many facts as possible, it only gave me 2. In other words, it essentially gave me 150 words of fluff. By the way, here's a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Search Intelligence.
This campaign got us big links in websites such as Lifehacker, Wales Online, Daily Record, and about 20 other news websites. Let me show you how we've done it. We knew that people will be flying a lot this summer, and we knew that journalists will be writing about this topic a lot. So, on behalf of our client, we put together a nice guide about how to fall asleep on the plane. Then we use Muckrack to find journalists who write about travel. Then we put our advice in a nice email and send the tips to the journalists. Within just a few days, the links started landing, securing our client natural placements in really big websites, just like this, and this. This is a great example about how you can leverage seasonal trends to earn links to a website. Anticipate what journalists want to write about at all times and give them the stories that they need. They will reward you with some great, juicy links. I hope this is helpful.
Now back to the video. Let me show you something else. Going back to the original prompt that trains ChatGPT on facts, you'll see I've added a new line. Also read this URL, and I gave it a link to a Google Doc where I input my own facts about Egypt. Okay, here's the output. As you can see, it used WebPilot twice to access both documents. And here's the facts, blah, blah, blah. But what's this here at the bottom? Egypt has a current Swedish population of 69, all of whom are female and single? This is a case of good old garbage in, garbage out. If you feed it bad facts, then it's going to produce bad facts. To overcome this, you want to feed ChatGPT as many different sources as possible, so it'll fact check between the documents that you're feeding it. The problem with that is data limitations. ChatGPT has a limit of around 4,000 tokens if you're using GPT 3.5 and 8,000 if you're using GPT 4. To put that into understandable terms, that's about 3,000 to 6,000 words respectively, and that includes the length of your prompt. So if you're feeding a lot of data and you go past these limits, it'll either crap out and give you an error, or worse, pretend like it's going fine, but since the data comes in, first out, it will forget what you gave it first. ChatGPT is also not very good at writing complete articles. The longer you create your articles, the worse the content gets. There's more fluff and useless sentences that'll make your eyes bleed. So to get around this, you want to write one section of an article at a time. Let's say you wanted to write an article on how to lose belly fat. You'd start with an article outline like this. You'd write the introduction paragraph first, then a separate ChatGPT run for a section on eating fiber, then a section on trans fats, then minimizing alcohol, and so forth. Alternatively, you can use Surfer AI. Surfer AI uses 400,000 tokens in a single run, which is nearly 100x more data than ChatGPT. Instead of inputting training articles manually into ChatGPT, Surfer AI looks at up to 20 of the top ranking articles on Google to pull facts from, which are the exact same articles you want to be pulling your facts from, because these are the facts that got them to the top of Google in the first place. As for the content itself, instead of dripping out one section of content at a time like with ChatGPT to avoid it getting fluffy and useless, Surfer AI will generate an entire article in a single button press, and it will be SEO optimized based on the frequency of the keywords and entities found in the articles at the top of Google. So what you end up with is a fact-dense article that's already optimized to get to the top of Google. To claim $100 worth of free Surfer AI credits, no strings attached, head on over to surferseo.com/Matt Diggity today.